January 11, Wednesday, Stop Guantanamo, downtown Federal Building, and live streamed. You'll be getting and have gotten announcements. You'll get additional ones. We have a great lineup of speakers and co-sponsors. We're upgrading our live streaming if you can't go downtown on that day. But January 11 at noon, if you're able, join us at the lunchtime to attract crowds and hopefully the media to once and for all close Guantanamo. Thank you.
All righty. Thank you, Dr. Ruby. Thank you, Phil. And you saw earlier, I'm here with a colleague. This is Chantel Augustine, who's also here with me. And we're going to be talking this morning. This was one of the series that we were doing about teaching peace. And I just have to show you. I don't know if I can see it, but I have on my shirt and it says, "Teach peace." I like to wear that one. That's a good one. So I'm going to start out this morning, if you will so indulge me. Let's see. Here we go. Okay. So I thought we could just, my favorite way to do things always is experientially as opposed to like didactically. I mean, I do think we learn both ways, but in my little world and my little brain, I learn best when it's an experiential learning. So I thought we could start in the way that we usually start our programs. So we usually start with some kind of a check-in. So I was wondering if you could either use your thumbs up, down, sideways, if it's so-so, to just do a little check-in how everybody's doing this morning. So give us a thumbs up, a thumbs down, or a thumbs sideways, or you can use your reactions, whatever you prefer. We got some thumbs up. We got some hearts, smiley faces. Yes, good. Got a few we aren't seeing yet, but hopefully they will check in as well. And I think it's just good to start with that, to start with checking in case there's anything that is going on with anyone that we really need to touch on and talk about before we get started. This is really hard to just plunge into something when somebody is experiencing something really traumatic or dramatic. Like I think this morning we can be, at the same time doing this discussion, we can be holding Maggie and her friend who are sitting Shiva this time. And that's a heavy thing to hold. And so we can help hold that with them. So hope you feel our support and our love directed your way this morning, Maggie.
Might I add?
Yes, you may.
That 4 days ago, my ex-husband went to the hospital with what we thought was a heart attack. It turned out to be pneumonia. I went and picked him up. My friend who lives out in Fullerton fell on the floor with me being right there, and we almost called the paramedics, but we were able to get her up. It was like a sack of potatoes fell on the floor. We could not do anything with her. Then my friend's husband died, of course, and my tenant went to the hospital and spent the night last night in the psych unit because she's upset because I asked her to look for other places to live. And so because I think she needs more care, I feel very trapped because I can't leave her without her falling apart. So I have a lot of people who depend on me, and I need to take care of myself. I'm lying down right now.
Oh my goodness, Maggie, that is a lot. And I hope, like, maybe we can just all take a moment right now and just take a deep breath in and out and send some really positive and loving and supportive energy toward Maggie, because that is a lot. Ah, yes. So let's continue to hold Maggie in our thoughts and in our prayers and in our sending energy and love her way this morning.
I can
So
feel that. Thank you.
yeah, of course, of course. And if there's more that we can do, I hope you will let us know that as well. So let us be sure, that's one of the reasons why we like to do our check-ins, because there are things people are holding that we're not aware of. And again, it is just very hard to proceed with that heaviness if we don't, acknowledge it and do our best to support. Okay, so having done our check-ins, our next thing that we do when we're doing our program is a meditation. And many times I think you all have heard the meditation we do in the programs. It's a very short one. I'm going to do one that is, I've also done here once, I think, before. It's not a long one, but it's one that I do regularly. And it gives me great grounding and great positive energy to face my things. Because like Maggie, like I was telling Carol Francis earlier, with my dad, before we went to visit him, I was kind of, going crazy, just feeling so far away and unable to help. And so, I really needed to ground myself in that. And I needed to go too. So I was glad I could do that. So if you will, join me. We'll do a meditation. This is my personal meditation that I like to do. So get comfortable in your seat or in whatever position you're in. And you can close your eyes. You can turn off your camera if you like it. Whatever makes you feel most comfortable. And we begin. This meditation is a meditation with a lot of visualization and kind of smiling energy, walking meditation. A lot of it I gleaned from reading and listening to Thich Nhat Hanh over the years. So homage to him, but this is my personal. So we begin as we walk toward the elevator that will take us to our place of peaceful meditation. As we push the button, the elevator doors open and we walk inside. As they close, we notice that we will go up 10 floors. With each floor we pass, we'll count and take a deep breath in through our nose and out through our mouth. 1, in through our nose, out through our mouth. 2, in through our nose, out through our mouth. 3, in through our nose, out through our mouth. 4, in through our nose, out through our mouth. 5, in through our nose, out through our mouth. 6, in through our nose, out through our mouth. 7, in through our nose, out through our mouth. 8, in through our nose, out through our mouth. 9, in through our nose, out through our mouth, and 10 in through our nose and out through our mouth. And the elevator doors open, and we walk out into a field of beautiful flowers. And we see the vibrant colors of the flowers. And we smell the sweet smell of the flowers. And we feel the soft touch of the silky petals as we brush past them, and we smile. As we walk out into the field of beautiful flowers, we decide to lie down in the midst of the flowers. Lying on our back with the flowers surrounding us, we look up into the sky and we feel the sun shining warmly on our face. And we see the white fluffy clouds moving slowly across the beautiful blue sky with the gentle breeze. And we smile. As we continue to lie there in the middle of the field of beautiful flowers, we breathe inside of us the ability of the flowers to bloom in the present moment without concern about what tomorrow will bring, so that we, like the flowers, can live in the present moment without anxiety about tomorrow. And we say to ourselves, I am a flower. And as we slowly get back up, we walk toward the edge of the field of flowers where there's a stream flowing gently beside the flowers. And we stop to enjoy the way the sunlight is dancing on the surface of the stream, and we smile. We turn to move forward again with the stream on one side and the flowers on the other. And as we walk beside the babbling, trickling stream, we breathe inside of us the ability of the stream to flow effortlessly past any obstacles it encounters on the way to its destination, so that we, like the stream, can move effortlessly past any obstacles we encounter on the way to our goals. And we say to ourselves, I am a stream. As we continue to walk beside the stream with the flowers on one side, we come to a large tree, and we stop to put our arms around the tree, feeling its nubbly bark and the strength flowing beneath the bark. We smile. We decide to lay down on the soft ground beneath the tree. And as we do so, we breathe inside of us the ability of the tree to remain rooted and strong in the face of storms that it encounters, so that we, like the tree, can remain grounded and strong in the face of troubles we encounter in our daily lives. And we say to ourselves, I am a tree. And as we lay on the soft ground beneath the tree, we feel the life-giving energy from the earth flow inside of us and fill us with love for all living things. And we say to ourselves, I am connected through love to the web of life. And we lay there for a moment, feeling completely at peace, completely calm, totally connected to the earth. Until we begin to get back up gently and slowly to walk back towards the elevator that will take us back to our daily lives. And as we walk through the field of flowers again, we enjoy their colors, the smell of the flowers, and the touch as we walk past them. And we smile, enjoying again the warm sun on our face and the fluffy clouds and the soft blue sky. And we smile. We see butterflies dancing on the surface of the flowers. And we smile. We walk back to the elevator door. And as we push the button, the door opens. And we walk inside. As it closes, we know we will go down 10 floors, counting backwards from 10. With each floor we pass, we will feel more and more at peace, more and more refreshed, more and more connected through love to all living things. 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, and the elevator door opens, and we walk out feeling completely refreshed, at peace, connected through love to all living things, ready to face what lies ahead, but knowing we can return to this space whenever we choose. You can gently open your eyes. You can turn on your camera if you choose, and we will reconnect to each other. Maybe take a stretch. Okay, thank you for joining me for my meditation and joining me in my my meditation space this morning. Appreciate it. You can take a couple of moments to check in again and see how, if anybody wants to share now how they're feeling after we've done our meditation together. You can either give a thumbs up or you can, if you'd like to share something, we can have a couple of shares. Maggie?
I wanted to share that I had this pain that recurs sometimes right in the back of my neck on the left side, and it's gone now.
Okay. You know, it is a funny thing. We meditate every time we meet, and I always think I'm starting at a good place, but there's this part where I feel my body relax. It happens every time. I love that. Dave says thumbs up. And Maggie, you had your hand up? Oh, I think you're muted.
Just that, yes, I felt totally peaceful and I feel like I was back. I'm back. I'm not just all these things that are happening. I'm here.
Very good. Very good. We're glad to hear that. Glad to have you back. It is sometimes, you know, difficult and overwhelming. And like I said, you know, I would just feel that same feeling, Maggie, or at least a similar feeling of just being so pulled and frazzled and disconnected. And this is the thing that gave me that peace, that grounded me. And Vita, you had your hand up.
Okay, all right. It reminded me when I was in that peaceful place of a dream. I have a lot of dreams now. And I dreamed I was sitting next to Martin Luther King Jr. And we were at this table. He looked like himself, like his pictures, but it was him. It was him. And he was talking to this man across the table and showing him some pictures of his family. And I got up my nerve to say, could I see those pictures too? And he started showing me some pictures of this. And I woke up with this great sense of peace and joy. It was just, what a wonderful dream to have.
That is a great dream. Thank you for sharing that. Okay, well, now that we've kind of grounded ourselves in peace, because, you know, I often like to tell people, I find it both amazing and a little ironic that I am a peace center director, because it seems that most of my life has been a quest for peace. And so that's the amazing part, but that I know my own, in my own self, how far short I fall at times. And so I'm very happy, and even though it's a little ironic, to be in this position in which the universe is always nudging me and saying, you can do better. Okay, so now what I was going to do is show you the slide presentation from our summer, this past summer. This was our first summer back in person in 3 years. And it was our first summer back in person with occupational therapy students, which made it unique, and masked, which also made it unique. And we spent most of our time outdoors as a result, also because of the COVID. So many one of a kind things about this summer. And then after the slideshow, you know, I wanted to have Chantel share a little with you about her peace journey and teaching peace. And then I have a little quick video clip from another one of our teachers, Elizabeth Cruz. And then I'll talk a little bit about how, from my perspective, how I think we're teaching peace. And then as a discussion, you know, together, have us all thinking about, you know, what are the barriers to teaching peace that we've encountered, and how we can together work to overcome those and support each other's work. Because we've been partnering with ICUJP for years and years, many years, don't even know the number, and through wonderful high moments and some really challenging low moments, ICUJP and what is now SOLA Community Peace Center have been great collaborators. So if I may, let me get this slideshow ready to share with you. Okay.
When I gave the word, now in the morning I sleep alone, sweep the streets I used to own. rain, shattered windows and the sound of drums. People couldn't believe what I'd become. Revolutionaries wait for my head on a silver plate, just a puppet on a lonely string. Oh, who would ever wanna be king? I hear Jerusalem bells ringing, Roman cavalry choirs are singing. Mirror, mirror, my soul, shield, my missionaries in a foreign field. Some reason I can't explain. I know Saint Peter won't call my name, never run all this world, but that was when I ruled the world. Jerusalem bells ringing, Roman cavalry choirs are singing. Mirror, mirror, my soul, shield, my missionaries in a foreign field. Some reason I can't explain. I know Saint Peter won't call my name, never run all this world, but that was when I ruled the world.
Okay. I know that went by quickly, and I had it purposely set on a pretty quick clip there because it wasn't meant for you to have to read and absorb all of the text, but just, you know, impressions. And if there were a couple of things, if anybody, a couple of people want to share anything that kind of struck you, or, you know, looking at it that you kind of resonate with, you would have a couple of minutes for sharing before we go to Chantal.
I missed the first country, Costa Rica, Japan, Switzerland, and what was the first one?
The first one was what was the first one? Mauritius. Yeah, Mauritius.
Oh,
It's a
Mauritius.
you know, we learn every summer when we take on new countries, and I never even heard of Mauritius, I'm sorry to say, but it's
Right.
a little island country off of the coast of Africa, which is the only African country that's primarily Muslim, though it has a diverse population. But it's part of Africa, even though it's kind of out there in the middle of the ocean. Yes, Steve.
Thank you.
You know, my biggest impression is how proud I am. I'm proud of you. I'm proud of your kids. I'm proud of ICUJP for supporting you and sustaining your efforts all these years. This is an extraordinary program. You can see how much the kids enjoyed it, how much they got out of it, how well organized it was. By the way, your PowerPoint video skills have improved over the years. This was a great video. So I just want to say, I sat here with a big smile on my face to feel that, you know, this is an adjunct to ICUJP's Peace Education, and you're doing such a terrific job.
Thanks, Stevie. It is a, as I said, it is a joy. It is a challenge sometimes, but mostly that's the administration and fundraising. The kids, you know, even though it's challenging, it's a great joy. So thank you, and thanks for ICJP for the partnership. Carol Francis?
Yes, I would love to hear more about your team building and problem solving activities. I always love to hear about those.
Okay, we will try to hit on that, and let's keep that in mind, Chantel. Okay. And let's see, we have Rick.
Oh, I'll wait till Chantel presents because it's about,
Okay.
both of you guys.
Okay. Okay, Chantel, would you like to go now, and you can tell us more about your ideas about what we do, how we do it, and why we do it for you personally.
Okay. Hi, everyone. My name is Chantel. Like I said earlier, I'm the Peace Camp Assistant Director. I've been at SOLA Community Peace Center for about 3-4 years now. And it originally started because I came to my pastor about a compost project that I wanted to do. And I believe it was like during the summer, it was an interesting idea I had. And pastor was like, maybe soon. And so it was like at a church picnic, and I saw Susan, and like both of our minds kind of just like lit up because I really wanted to do a compost project for the church so that we can have like different garden events as well. And so the first time I met a few students, I was honestly nervous because I hadn't taught any, and I'm usually a person who does projects on my own. So it was just a new experience to be a mentor and work as a team. And so I remember like in the end of the fall semester doing the compost project, and we had students, adults, peace families from all over, just learning about composting and how they could compost at home. And that even though like we live in an urban city, it's still possible to be eco-friendly. And it's just amazing to see like so many people lit up because not only like this was an idea that should be spread all over, but we came as a community to talk about those issues. And then I went on to do Peace Camp, and it came right during the pandemic. And during the pandemic, I did struggle a lot. And it brings me to my point why I still stay at Peace Camp, because the things that we teach with the students, it's reflected on us and it's reflected on them, and it goes back and forth. I think when I did Peace Camp one semester, the semester my mom passed away, it was a lot for me. And I felt like I didn't need a break because I felt like I would be like a disservice for my students. And so I came into class one day and I just wasn't feeling it. But the energy the younger kids that I teach bring, it just makes me feel so joyous. And having them repeat everything that I taught them is just an honor within itself. And so I think when it comes to like teaching peace and having our curriculum here for Peace Camp, it teaches like the students not only conflict skills, not only social issues that require us to be more straightforward and bring out justice, but it also teaches them how to cope with their feelings, how to, when conflicts do arise, how to compromise so that everyone is happy. And so I think in terms of like the peace families, it feels very refreshing to hear the parents talk about like, oh, well, I did not know this country. And so my child just told me a whole bunch of facts about this country, and now I'm interested to look it up. And so it's fun to like hear the parents also learn so much about peace and so much about different countries that do different things that our country has not done yet or in the progress of doing. And yeah, I really feel like Peace Camp has brought so much into my life, emotionally and physically. And I'm just glad to be a part of it. And I thank Susan so much for being a huge resource for me and the kids and the peace families that we have.
Thank you, Chantel. And we'll have a little time of talk back with each other, unless anybody has a like pressing thing. As soon as we finish, we have a couple more things to present, and then we'll have some time for everybody to reflect and think. Fernando, did you have something to? I think
You're muted.
I think you're muted.
Okay. Well, what I wanted to say is that I'm kind of worried about the kids. This uncertainty time because of this emerging nuclear holocaust. And I find it very relaxing because they are more aware of how to create peace. And so I like to congratulate you, you know, particularly your group, to really congratulate you because you know how to handle it. And I guess I'm a little bit naive in some point. I just wanted to say that. Thank you.
I think we live in troubling times, Fernando, no doubt, and it worries me as well. But I think all we can do is do our best to try to create the world we want to live in, and that's what we're about. Chantel, did you want to say anything?
I know that like there's a lot of issues when it comes to the world, even in our country. I think that us being informed, especially the kids being informed of what's going on, because as I said, I work with 5 to 7 year olds, and I was telling them about compost like a month before this meeting. And the last time we met in October, I was telling them about recycling, and they were like, well, isn't like paper supposed to be on compost? And so like actively like teaching the youth like, hey, this is social issues that are happening right now, prompts them to actually make a change, even if they're still young. And so I have hope and I have faith that my generation and the generation that is after me will continue to fight for these social issues and to come as one people to help the planet and help the people and animals that live in it.
Well,
were you going to say something, Phil? No. Okay. So I'm going to show you it's just like a minute and a half, a video clip that another one of our teachers sent in because she couldn't come this morning. She had to work. Her name is Elizabeth Cruz, and she was in our program when she was a young teen, and then she came back to us and taught before COVID in the program, and then now she's back volunteering with us. So let me share that with you now.
Hi everyone, my name is Elizabeth and I am a volunteer at Peace Camp. One thing I would like to share.
I'm sorry, I can't turn up the sound louder because I think she recorded it at a very soft sound because she was recording it. Unfortunately, she told me she could do it late last night after work about midnight. So sorry, she probably just didn't want to wake everybody up.
Is the importance of peace education to myself and others, and especially why I think it's important to educate kids about peace. Based on my experience, I found it to be easier to be in harmony with people throughout my life. Of course, it's inevitable to be in the face of conflict with others, but remaining calm and grounded will best benefit both parties. Providing peace education is important for those who do not have the resources and opportunities to build and a healthier lifestyle. Just like you brought up, I was in different households because both my parents worked 2 jobs side by side and support. I didn't have a person to guide me, but my parents did the best they could, and for that, I came across this wonderful group that taught me the values, knowledge, attitudes, and skills about peace when my parents couldn't due to circumstances. I believe we have families same thing, and providing these services to be a helping hand. These programs of peace education are great resources for future generations. Developing these kinds of values and ethics will make them better leaders and companions where there would be improvement and progression in life. These kids are the future, and we can guide them in the right direction while we still can.
Sorry for the sound on that one. But she was saying how how she thought it was important, and it was a resource for her when she was growing up and her family was working all the time, and she got bounced around a lot, and they weren't able to give her the resources she needed all the time, but she found a lot of strength and support through our peace programs, and she learned a lot about them. And I think that's what brought her back to us now as a volunteer, is wanting to give that back to her. So I'm just going to say a few more words, and then I'm going to, then we're going to have a little talk back here. Let me share with you, for a moment, is this through like Maslow's hierarchy of needs, you know, to be able to talk about some of the things we're doing and how it kind of hangs together. So in our peace education, first of all, again, I just have to give a shout out to Thich Nhat Hanh and his work about being peace, because I really, really, really have come to understand that it's not just teaching peace. It's not just knowing the right things. It's practicing peacemaking. That's really where the rubber meets the road. And that's really what it's all about, is being able to practice these things. And that's what we offer to the kids, not just a didactic program, but an experiential program where they get to experience and they get to practice these peacemaking and justice making techniques. And on the very most basic level, you know, we provide the basic things when they're in our program. You know, they're in the program. You know, we give them the physical space to keep them safe, and we provide them with healthy vegetarian foods, which I don't know if you were able to pick up on this as it went by quickly on our slide presentation, but this summer, as we were doing our focus on eco justice and green space, we asked the kids to compete on which class could make the least amount of food waste for the meals that we ate. So each class had a container that all the food waste from their class, from our meals and our snacks, went into that container. And competition is a powerful tool, I will say. They got really into that. And I think we had less food waste than we've ever had. And, you know, it's also, you know, exciting to have them try different foods. We were doing Switzerland, we did a cheese fondue. I never even had a cheese fondue like that. And the kids were, you know, they thought that was really exciting. They made sushi, you know, when we did Japan. One of our garden instructors had experience making sushi, so she taught them that. So, you know, there was a lot of good things about that. And then we also give out food in the form of fresh produce from a couple of food banks every month to try to help meet the needs. The food that unfortunately is the most cheap and available is the most unhealthy food. So the fruits and vegetables and the plant-based diet is not so accessible if you're on a limited budget. So that's part of why we focus on giving out produce bags every month. And then I think it's so super important. And I know we've talked about this before, but it's become so clear to me how important this safety aspect is for our kids in this, what can be such an unsafe world. They need a place that they feel safe, that they feel protected, that they feel nurtured and loved, and that we're going to look out for their best interest. And Peace Camp provides that space for the kids, and they've told us that. And then the love and belonging, you know, even if you have a safe space, you want to feel like you belong, you want to feel like you're loved. And that's a tricky space sometimes, you know, for all of us. For you know, some of our kids, it's more challenging than others, you know, to practice this, depending on what's their experience been in their own lives and the traumas that they've undergone in their lives. And we had one of our youth this summer was very energetic, and she had a lot of great energy. She also had a lot of challenges in using those in a peaceful way. And we spent a lot of time, or I spent a lot of time. I'm kind of like the quasi principal, right? So I get to talk to the kids, where there are challenges. And I told her, like her energy would take her far if she could direct it, in a positive way, because it sometimes came out sideways. It came out in the form of, snarkiness to other kids, or even sometimes it kind of bordered on a little bullying. So we spent a lot of time talking about that, and she said, she was really trying to practice and getting control of her energy and some of her anger, which, sometimes when you see kids like her, you might think, what is wrong with this kid? But in reality, I think it's what is wrong with our world, that we're doing so much damage to kids, that this is an adaptive response. This is what happens when kids are kind of pounded down. They become angry and it comes out like that. So we have to make that safe space. We have to help them experience that there can be a different way, that there can be a safe way of being together and being cared for, and really expressing their feelings in other ways. So that, I think, is one that we can't undervalue. And then, the esteem issues, it's so important that the kids feel they feel like that we're going to be there to respect them and help them discover their gifts and help them discover their inner leader, because there are leadership programs, but I feel like those programs are great, but they're often programs for kids who are leaders and want to be better leaders. And our program is kind of like, come as you are and find your inner leader. And that may not look like anybody else's leader. That's okay. If your leadership is a quiet leadership that involves art, then that's great. That's a great gift, so that, I feel like, is also something about our program. And on Sunday, we were talking about feelings. And again, the kids in our program this past Sunday, they started talking about their experiences of being bullied. And, all of them had been bullied in one way or another. And then a little bullying broke out between one of the kids and another kid, who had some special needs. And, it's sometimes challenging for the other kid. And so that, again, is where the rubber meets the road. Yeah, we study the countries and the issues, but where it really comes down to it for all of us, I think, is in a day-to-day, moment-to-moment, in our interpersonal interactions with each other. And so it may not always look like super peaceful, meditative, but that's because, we live in an imperfect world and we're imperfect beings. But the kids, I can guarantee you, the difference from the beginning to the end every summer is kind of extraordinary. Not compared to other kids, but compared to their own journey. And then the self-actualization, we need more people who understand the big picture and can relate to it and can be their best self in that picture and help us achieve, some sense of connectedness to each other. I sometimes think about it, and I think, even for us, like here around the ICUJP table, I know I have so much respect for all the work everyone around this table does personally and, societally, to try to shape a world of peace. But then I think about it too, and I think, even we who are educated in the ways of peace, we bump up against each other and we fall short. And so, that's, I think, where it really comes down to it for me is those moment to moment, day to day practices. And that even in the midst of like our zeal for whatever issues and problems we're trying to address, we don't forget to recognize the humanity in each other and the compassion to see each other and to see each other's struggles and to see that with eyes of compassion, because I feel like that is the way of peace, and that's the way of like Thich Nhat Hanh, and Father Chris just popped in. I know it's the way of people like John Deere and this Catholic, Pache Ibeni, peacemaking trail that they have forged. So I want to call us all to our best selves as well. And sometimes I think, I was talking to a friend of mine yesterday, I was like, why is it so much harder with the people that we love the most? You get so frustrated with each other, but we have to kind of take a step back from that. And in my experience, this hierarchy is not the same, in the cultural context. In some countries, it is much more important to have love and belonging and self-actualization. So Maslow fits well in this culture, is very individual. Yeah, no, I agree. And the whole idea of a hierarchy is really kind of not helpful. It's just a way to kind of organize some of the thoughts is what I was using it for. Less hierarchical, and you're right, it's much more fluid and less rigid than that. And then Carol Francis says, matter what's most valued, having the basic, and I think that I do find that to be helpful, Carol Francis. If we don't have the basic kind of needs met, if we're coming from a place of lacking, it's very hard then to move into other spaces to help other people if we, in the most basic emotional, physical sense, our needs are not met. Anyway, so those were some of my thoughts from our program, and even for here in ICUJP. And then this is where I was hoping we could open it up for a discussion about maybe what I was thinking actually this morning. I was thinking maybe we could each, we talk a lot about the big picture in here, and I love that about ICUJP, but maybe we could bring it down to a very personal level. Like, where's the cutting edge for each of us in having more peace and teaching more peace? Where do we see that in our own lives and our own experience? And it looks like Rick has his hand up.
Now, Susan, thank you very much for this presentation, because I always find that when we talk about things like youth empowerment and youth programs, that more and more a lot of it has to do with something that we can bring to our own lives, no matter whether we think of ourselves as youthful or not. And more people on this call should think of themselves as youthful. And Chantel, thank you very much for talking about your participation. That's what I find important for me, is that there's always something when you're talking about SOLA and Peace Camp that I can relate to, and and if I can make a statement that's a little bit broader, right? We've had some really good presentations from yourself and from Carol Francis, and somebody else about education. And I was thinking that maybe when it comes to the first quarter of next year, maybe we can have a program with yourselves and maybe some other people that we've had on forums previously, like the Howard Zinn Educational Foundation, maybe even get somebody from UTLA, or we have next year, I think we're going to have somebody from the American Library Association. And I think it's a bigger conversation about how we are proactive in how we teach kids, and how we're proactive in how we get around some of the neighborhood and smaller school district attempts to change how we educate people. So that's one thing I want to say.
Yeah, thank you for that. Yeah, it is complicated, I think, though I don't think it should be. I think if we removed some of the powers that be interests from our calculations of school and education, I think it would be clear that we need to have these discussions. But I think in the powers that be way, that it's in their interest to keep us all fighting with each other and keep us thinking like this, that our kids are going to hear something crazy we don't want them to hear or whatever, which I don't think that's the point of education. I think the point is to wrestle with these difficult questions. And
I would say most of the people on this call, when they were in school, probably had at least one or two report cards that says does not respect or does not follow authority. And when that happens, this is a type of adult you get, somebody that maybe is a little bit more broad-minded, can handle speaking with a few different people with a few different perspectives. And we're the danger that can come out of a progressive education, so we got to keep that going.
Right.
No matter what kind of attempts by other people to keep that from happening.
Right. Well, and I think if you think about it too, that I think people, we live in fearful times, right? We live in times that are scary to so many people, and rightfully so. We've just gone through the biggest pandemic that the world has seen. We've got all of this. People are afraid of like each other, but in reality, the threat to our way of doing things that we've always done, in the way we've always done them, is automation, and that's not going away. And so it's a time of social upheaval. So people are afraid, and if we start by acknowledging that's legitimate, fear, to be afraid during these times, I think then we can kind of go on to have the discussion, like you were saying, about, well, maybe this isn't the thing to be afraid of. Like maybe we need more people who are willing to question and assumptions and challenge, the powers that be to get us to a better place. But I think in time of fear, it's been shown over and over, and that's part of some of the good things that can come from Maslow's hierarchy of needs as well. When people are feeling, this kind of existential threat, they're not likely or interested in taking on big issues, and they tend to want these heavy-handed authoritarian leaders, which is not so good for us or our world. Yes, Steve.
Well, two things. Rick mentioned report cards. I got a report card in elementary school. Stephen finishes his work early and bothers the other children. So I'm not sure what personality trait that speaks to. But more seriously, in terms of today's wonderful discussion and your prompt, Susan, to make this even more individual and personal, I have really felt myself deliberately trying to find a peaceful, calm place when challenged in traffic, online in the store, in other very personal situations where I might have gotten annoyed, I might have tried to assert myself, assert my rights, quote unquote. And I often, not always, hardly perfect, but I process these moments of challenge or conflict trying to think about the other person. What is their life like today? Why are they cutting in front of me in traffic? Where do they need to get to deal with their needs and their family and their work? Often the two of us end up at the same red light. 3 minutes later, the fellow hasn't gotten much further than I have, but I didn't cut him off or beep my horn or yell at him or engage in road rage. So I do think, and I attribute some of this to ICUJP and the years we've all worked together and the lessons I've learned from you and your kids, that there is a way, this lofty principle of that peace begins with us, that we need to practice peace. And by the way, I also am doing this with my grandchildren, who can get, the oldest can get very annoying, and I try to keep my temper and my calm and look for a peaceful common ground with him. So I do think it matters in our individual personal lives.
For sure. Yeah. I will tell you one quick story, and then I wanted to give Chantel a chance to respond. When I was at USC, I was doing to do a presentation with someone about occupational therapy with the counseling department at USC. And I was running late, and I was trying to get there, and there was this car in front of me, and it was going so slowly, and I was going to be late, and I was like right up on them, like, go, please, just go through this light, just go. Don't you know, when we got there, the car in front of me was the person I was going to meet with. So never do that. I was very embarrassed, and I had to say, I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. I was frustrated because I was late.
Can I add an addendum? When I used to do trials, I told my clients, every person within a mile of the courthouse could be on your jury. Don't cut them off in the parking lot. Don't cut them off on the way to court. That could be one of your jurors.
Oh, so true. So true. That we do crazy things, and the universe just chuckles, I think. Okay. Ruby, Dr. Ruby. Oh, wait, I was going to say, Chantel, did you want to add something to that? Oh, did we lose Chantel? No, there she is. Chantel, you just moved on my screen.
Yes. I guess for me, going through like the hierarchy, I feel like it's like interchangeable, because for me, like, I guess like self-realization and like love and belonging, I feel like it's something like I always yearn, and I feel like you can have it, but like I think it just depends on each person. Like, does this type of love like will be satisfying for this person compared to like getting love from multiple people, and how that will look like. So I think for me personally, I think like having like the basic needs, I think that is, I guess that is like important, but I think like having peace and love and belonging is more important, kind of. Because like I know like when studying at school, like I know they talked about like a study where like a child was just left by themselves. Like they had the shelter and the food and everything, but they like the parents never taught the child anything. They never gave love. And by the time they got older and went into the real world, they didn't know exactly what they wanted. And I think it's harder to survive that way. So I guess it's interchangeable for me, especially like within my own life. Um, because I find it that like peace, self-awareness, as well as like love is something very important to me. And I feel like without it, I would not really thrive as much.
I think that's a good point, and it goes back to Grace's point. Yeah, I was thinking about what you're saying. I think you're probably right, Grace. If we flipped that a little bit, we'd probably be a little better off in this country if we strive to have more of the needs at the communal level instead of the personal level. So, yes, Dr. Ruby.
Hey, you know what? I'm like Steve. I am so proud of you. And, you know, having worked with you and then seeing the young people like Chantel come forward and be your teachers and support you in the work. And I've been a peace advocate ever since I was a teenager, and that was in the 50s, when I was wandering around the different people in different countries were saying, I was in Germany, they were saying Guten Tag, or they were saying all positive things in different languages for hello and for greetings. There's people were saying ciao, and all the different things. And we were saying hello. And I couldn't understand. I said, why are we putting those 4 letters into that, you know, in a greeting? And that's when I started saying peace in my words, and peace in and peace out. And so to see you bring all of this in your work that you're doing, I am just really proud of you. And I see what's happened with this reflection that I wrote, that I had everything out and said, and then all of a sudden the string to the computer disappeared. I said, okay, I know why. So, you know, I still will be working with the reflection, with the thoughts, because it's what everything that you've been saying regarding fear, regarding worthy. So, you know, our next step, as we're supporting the children and the youth, to know that they can come forward in these thoughts and everything that you're doing and saying. I just want to thank you. And you know I'm there for you whenever you call on me.
Thanks, Dr. Ruby. Of course, you know, your life is such a example for us to follow of following the ways of peace. So thank you so much for that. And yeah, and just let me know when it's time for the reflection. I was just gonna hear from Anthony and Carol Francis. I know had something she wants to speak to. And I just wanted to say as well, you know, we're so grateful for the partnership with ICUJP and other groups that, you know, we offer these programs at no cost to any kid who wants to come, any family who wants to be part of it. And I think that's so important as well, to take away all the barriers and to just, you know, make it so accessible. So we're grateful for that. And we have some donors from ICUJP who continue to donate. If you want to join them, you're welcome to on our website. There is a donate button, and it's the same. We use the same, of course, because we have Rod as our bookkeeper as well. We use the same software so for secure donations through Vanco. But you can always find us online at SOLA Community Peace Center.org. And then let's hear from Anthony and Carol Francis.
So it's always a joy to hear your presentation, Susan, and what you're doing. A couple of times that I've been involved with your work, it's just the kids are just so great, and you've done such a great job in helping them to learn how to listen and communicate to each other. So I just want to commend you for that, and for giving them such a broad perspective. One issue that hasn't come up, but it is a source of a lot of conflict in education, is racial justice. Conservatives are using critical race theory as a kind of an issue to rile people up. But certainly you can't really teach peace or teach about American history or history in general without dealing with racial and ethnic conflicts that come up. So I just wondered how, and certainly recently with what happened at City Hall in LA shows that even our leaders are needing some education, to put it mildly. So how do you deal with racial and ethnic conflict issues, both from the standpoint of history and also within the context of how your kids interact with each other.
Yeah, it's a challenge for sure. And I think this kind of black-brown divide that we experience sometimes and is particularly, challenging sometimes because, again, I think it's important for the kids to understand, what's going on in the world, what the issues are, where there is injustice, but at the same time to acknowledge we are not each other's enemies. Again, as Walter Wink likes to say, the powers that be, the powers and principalities, the people who are benefiting are not us from these divisions. It's the people who are getting more wealth than we've ever seen in our lifetime, the uber millionaires, the corporate interests. And if we understand that, then we can try to understand each other's issues and challenges and see again, each other with eyes of compassion and understanding that, we want the same things and we're being held down by the same forces. So wouldn't it be better to unite, to deal with that than to keep fighting each other? Because again, it only enriches the people who are already making uber bazillions. And Chantel, why don't you speak to this?
I think for me, being on like the floor with the kids, I think always being honest, and providing history that follows when it comes to racial justice and discrimination is a huge hitter. I think because a lot of our students are people of color, they kind of understand that like, hey, like because I'm a person of color, I could be treated differently. Let's go through the steps and figure out how to combat racial discrimination. I remember when we had I think it was like a Sunday for Black History Month. And I was able to teach like different Black women and Black people who changed even California within the past century, and learning how many like students knew about Black peacemakers, as well as like during Latinx History Month, like this month, learning about different murals and how many Chicano artists who make these murals in Los Angeles put in so much work, regardless of racial discrimination. Just kind of expands their mind on how we treat people. And I think also like coming to like when it comes to like conflicts, like how do we resolve them? And I think what we teach in terms of like trying for a win-win and having feelings and expressing those feelings in a healthy way kind of like shows not just like the children, but us, each other as like an adult, how things can be done. So I think also with critical race theory, you have to be honest, regardless of what people are trying to hide, or else the piece that we're doing, it won't be very effective. So just kind of for me, just being honest with the children, and just framing it in a way so that they can understand and see how they can move forward.
Mm-hmm. Thank you, Chantel. Yes, totally agree. And I was going to say for Grace that I don't know if she saw that Manuel Pastor commented on the whole thing with the council and how historically the groups, Black and brown groups, have been pitted against each other for power and representation, and understanding that context as well. Did you want to say anything about that, Grace?
No, not really, except to say that I was really glad for the way Luis Rodriguez framed it last week. He was so good about giving an understanding that, racism is in all of us, no matter where we are. And so we need to remember that and begin working within ourselves to figure out where are those places. I mean, so many people are saying, well, I'm not racist. And it's just not true. You know, it comes out, and we have to keep working at it because we are a divided people globally. Right. And I see it all the time in different cultures. In the Philippines, Fernando, for example, in the Philippines, the lowlanders don't like the highlanders, you know, and they have to work at that. And so, you know, in Guatemala, it's the colonial background people with, you know, Spanish blood who don't like the indigenous. And we go through every place. There's something that we have to work on. And it's a human tragedy, but it's also the human hope, because when we can begin coming across those challenges and realizing our common humanity, that's when we really feel a glory. And I feel that that's when we really begin to experience the supernatural and the presence of the other that really transcends those barriers and shows us our common humanity, which is what I think you're doing there. And it's just wonderful. Thank you, Chantel, for those good words, because that's really helpful to hear.
Yes, may I add something? Yes, I do agree with Grace, what Luisa said. But I think more importantly, you know, because we all have biases and so forth, you know, all of us has our own difficulties. But I think one important thing that Luis has shown is the colonialism, you know, because even though like the Philippines, for example, even though they don't want to be biased or anything like that, but that colonialism is also inborn in us. It's like it's in our DNA, and so we don't mean it, but it does reflect like what Grace has said. That's all I wanted to say.
Yeah, the legacy of colonialism is certainly not dead or gone. But yes, Carol Francis, you have been waiting patiently for some time.
Yeah, I wanted to say that about the Maslow a pyramid or whatever it was called. If you see it as a hierarchy, then yes, it's a cultural difference between those who put self-actualization over love. But if you see it as a set of steps towards something, the most basic thing is you don't have food, water, and reproduction and shelter and all those things, you're not going to get to the next step. And if you don't have those, you're not going to get to the next step. So if you see it that way, then the question is, do you need to be loved and to love before you can reach self-actualization, or the other way around? And I think seeing it that way, that works. But Susan, I had asked earlier, could you share, I can't remember, some of the two things that you said in your video.
Team building and
team building, that was the other one. Team building and problem solving. And I was hoping you could share an exercise, tell us about an exercise of those two things.
Well, I will tell you one thing that I have come to learn. Yes, we do team building exercises, and sometimes they're very fun things to do together. But one thing that I've come to learn, I think, is just that most basic thing, like we did this morning, is taking the time to check in with each other and to see each other not as, you know, when I started this work, it was like, we've got to have staff, you know, we've got to get the program together, we got to do, you know, it's very logistical, you know, kind of thinking. And I think it's a much more humanized kind of thinking now. It's like, we've got to start by taking care of ourselves and each other. Like, how are we doing? How are we with each other? And then I think that builds more connections than any team building exercise we've done. Is just that connecting on a really gut level with each other of, you know, what's really going on. And then as far as team building, we've done so many kinds of things together for team building, you know, little challenges, you know, working as a team to do little relay races where you have to like take a spoon of water, or, doing the kind of things where, you have to like jump over a barrier, but you have to get your whole team over, all those kinds of things. I think the team building that worked well this summer was just the challenge again of trying to make the least food waste. That really got the teams fired up. And I don't know, Chantel, you might have some other ideas for team building things we've done.
I agree. When we had the food waste baskets, I was with the younger kids, so they were very competitive, but they also understood like, hey, like I can't eat all of my food all the time. So what can I do? And so I think what ends up like being like a team building also becomes a problem solving for our group, because usually in the beginning of the summer they will take more than what they had. And so like by the time breakfast was over, it's just like, okay, well, I have this full thing of cereal. What am I gonna do with it? And so um by the end of the summer, it was just like, okay, I know that if I have too much, maybe I should like think about it before I decide to take another piece. So they'll usually ask, hey, like, can I get another one, instead of just like taking as much as they think they need. um and ultimately, I feel like for other groups as well, like having them team build, like, hey, like maybe you should not take this much if you know you're not going to finish it. And just also like figuring out like, hey, like, is this compost, can I put this in the compost bin so like we can help our team get like less trash waste, or is it like too much and we have to put it in the trash? So I think that one was a good one for both team building and problem solving.
Thank you.
And Phil?
Okay, okay, I'm unmuted. Yes, I have a number of responses, reactions, accolades, what have you. I am so impressed with your program. And it reminds me of one of the central features of my growing up was being part of the Pacific Acworth Friends School here in the San Gabriel Valley. It was formed in 1942 in response to too much war talk and whatnot in the public schools. And Quakers, as you know, are pacifists, and many of them, us, would not participate in war. And then within another year of that was the Japanese, what's it called? I don't always know the right word, the relocation camps for the Japanese Americans. And the Quakers and our school were very involved in supporting the people who were incarcerated over their Japanese ancestry. And so there was a lot of learning in both of those things. And the whole curriculum was built around peace and justice issues. And one of the things that would happen, my folks were co-founders and later teachers and co-directors. But one of the things my dad started early, as early as 49, and did it as long as he could physically do it, was to take kids on learning excursions, long extended camping trips with a learning objective into it. And part of the learning was giving kids the responsibility for planning and executing a lot of the tasks of doing such a thing, which ties in that the school and my dad in particular were strong advocates for experiential learning, which sounds like what you do also. And one of the things that also happened in there that is somewhat parallel to what you do is that graduates, alumni were pulled into leadership positions on some of these trips and excursions and whatnot, as leader drivers on trips. And some of the trips included things like studying farm labor issues and water issues and Native American issues, and trips to the Hopi and Navajo reservations and into Mexico. And all of this just flowed as part of the experiential learning. Anyway, that I want to just kind of say that part of my great admiration for what you're doing is that it somewhat further articulates the stuff that I grew up with. And a little response to Steve's comment about struggling with his personal responses to challenging people and situations. I spent a lot of time on the road, and I got extremely irritated with other drivers. And then I would do, then I start driving aggressively myself in response to that. And one thing I finally realized as part of my healing from that was to realize that when I get angry at other drivers, people I call crazy drivers, I become one of them. And it was that realization that really helped me bring that under control. Anyhow, there was something else I'll say. Yeah. Anyway, I think that was the main comment I wanted to make. Anyway, I am really so impressed and admire what you're doing, Susan.
Well, thank you. I think I would have loved being at the school that your parents started. Sounds really great. I think that's the way schools all should be, although they're not. And then I was also thinking about the experiential, and I was thinking about we each year in the fall, when we come to election day, we do a little mock election in our peace camp, and we try to make that an experiential process through kind of this role play. You want to tell them, Chantel, what we're doing for our little mock election?
Yes. So for the mock election, we're going to have like their ID, and so it's going to have their name, their class, as well as like a blank like square so they can draw out what they look like. And we're also going to have a ballot. So basically they try to go to like a voting poll, and so the main objective is to like have them understand like there's still voter suppression, and the biggest way that happens is through discrimination, especially racial discrimination, determining on the state and how the state is voting. So so they're gonna do like small little details like, hey, you didn't draw your whole face. Hey, you forgot what class you're in. So they kind of like understand like, okay, like why am I taking this long to vote? Like, why is it taking so long? And also like giving them ideas like, hey, like we are having like new elected officials in California, or if it's like, you know, more of a national election, hey, like we're having these elections for, you know, the national election, like who are these people and how can I vote for them as well. So, and we also incorporate like small things we do at Peace Camp they can vote on as well, so that they can feel kind of like the experience that we have as adults when it comes to voting.
Right. And it's been a good experience, these kind of role play experiential things. The youth usually help us, you know, they're one polling place is discriminatory and one isn't. And then the kids get frustrated when they keep sending them back to fix their registration, and the kids are like, Miss Susie, they won't let us vote. You know, why won't they let us vote? What's happening? And then we process it afterwards. And like, you know, well, okay, so what did you experience? And they, yeah, they weren't being fair. This doesn't happen in the real world. It's like, well, unfortunately, yes, it does happen in the real world. That's why we're doing it. That's why we're trying to learn about it. So,
Wow.
Okay, can we go into our closing circle here and join our hands virtually and do any personal sharing we want to do as a closeout?
So one of the things that I had a whole paper for this, and I'll send it as soon as my computer works, and I'll send it to Rick, and he can send it out. But it was us releasing the fears that we have, and as adults, and to fulfill our dreams. And one of the visions that I have always had was like world peace. And it's so interesting that this is what we're talking about today, is peace power. And in order to make that change within, that we have to understand what the difference of fears are, and being able to release the fear, release the negatives that are holding us back, and the worry. And when we worried about what might happen if, because of a past experience. So it's being able to let those things go as we go forward into it. And so what I found is basically 5 steps. One is when we start breathing, checking our own breath, and just doing simple breath and simple breathing. And the second thing is changing our mind about what we're thinking at that specific time, catching ourselves, and just being still in that thought and being able to change it to a positive thought by an affirmation or a word, which is the third step, or just our thinking at the time. Some people may just say a Bible verse or whatever it is, but just knowing that you can. The fourth step is understanding your worth and staying on your own wisdom by self-love and your self-honesty and responsibility and reliability. And what was said earlier, which is really true, is actualization. That was one of the things too. And then just knowing you're worthy too with these things and these thoughts and actions, and just being capable to go forward for this world. And the fifth one is just staying into the positive planning in your dreams and desires. So I heard something too right now, and Susan, you know, we've got your dad in prayer too, in the peace thought. So if anyone else would like to put something in there as we're closing now, but we're not really closing, we're opening ourselves to what we want to receive and where we're going, and that we can. Laughter is one thing too.
You're having some dead spots in your audio.
Oh, you're having some, can you hear me better now? As I'm close, I got closer. Okay. So what is it now? Like I said, for what you call prayer or peace thoughts or whatever it is, what would you like for us to put in there? Is there anyone who has anything special?
Well, I just want to say thank you to everybody who's here and participating and contributing to our group. It's a vital and important place to be, and I appreciate all of you.
just, Ruby, going along with what you were saying, just adding to our thoughts and prayers, just that we could see through the fear and the things that divide us and the frustration and anger, and that we could see each other, you know, in each other the spark of the divine, and try to see with the eyes of compassion.
Okay. Well, I guess we can close out on that note, and thank you, everybody.
Right. So as we know that we each right now are into the compassion, the peace to release any negative thoughts, our capability to continue to know that we're responsible for our choices and that we're able to make the right choices to receive and to give and to be. To just be at peace, that patient energy attitude exercise that we can take at any time. And I'm just grateful to be a part of this ICUJP, as Susan had expressed, and grateful for the healings here from this and for the children that are coming through this and in the futures. And as I know this and accept this, I give it up to the highest power in thanksgiving and prayer. And so it is. Ashe. Amen. Ashe.
Amen.
Thank you all. Go in peace.
Thanks, everybody. Thank you, Phil, for facilitating today. Rick, what's our program next week?
Our program is going to be John Parker with the Black Alliance for Peace, and should be very interesting. So I hope all of you can join in.
Be well and be safe, everyone. Have a good weekend. See you next Friday.